The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus went up to the mountain to pray, and he spent the night in prayer to God. When day came, he called his disciples to himself, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles: Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, the son of Alphaeus, Simon, who was called a zealot, and Judas, the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. The Gospel of the Lord. Through Christ's sins be wiped away.
Today we celebrate the feast of the apostles Simon and Jude. So we'd say they're two of the kind of more lesser known of the 12 apostles. That doesn't mean they're anything less significant. In fact, there's still quite a bit of devotion to them, at least Jude. So often you see Jude with a medallion on his chest that has the face of Christ on it. So often, that's a fairly popular devotion, especially to kind of Hispanic cultures or Latin American cultures have a great devotion to St. Jude, and I believe he is the patron saint of impossible causes. So, and then he's also known as Thaddeus in some of the Gospels. So today we have, and Judas, the son of James. So Judas isn't a great handle to have in the Gospels, post-resurrection stuff. So they just shortened it to Jude. We can distinguish a little bit better. And then Simon here is called a zealot. So a zealot, you think of zeal. These guys in a more of a classification were Jews around the time of Christ that were kind of Jewish nationalists. They really were zealous for the law and to bring about the restoration of the Davidic kingdom on earth, mainly by the defeat of the Romans, stuff like that. So it was kind of a sect, and even John the Baptist was kind of a zealot of sorts, though I think he was cast out of that community. But anyway, so that's a little bit of where those guys are coming from. They were also martyred, like all of the apostles. The tradition doesn't have that John was martyred, but all the rest of the apostles suffered martyrdom. So anyway, we honor their memory today without a doubt, and we thank God for their devotion and their spreading of the gospel. And what it causes me to think about today is just the nature of an apostle. So here we have the Lord. He calls all his disciples to himself. A disciple is a follower of Christ in this sense. So calls all of his disciples, and from those disciples, he chose 12 apostles. And so we're used to that language of, a distinction between the disciples and the apostles. But what is an apostle technically? Well, so technically it is one of the 12 that Jesus chose, but the word apostle means to be sent. So these guys, they were sent in a particular way to proclaim the kingdom of God. So we get that. So we call them, kind of a capital A apostle. All right, one of the 12. All right, but I think we can break that down into a relatable level so that we would speak of the church as being apostolic, one holy, Catholic, and apostolic church. Okay, interesting. So really we're all called to be apostolic. We're all called we're all sent to share the good news in our respectable vocations, things like that. So in a sense, we all participate in being apostolic, not necessarily an apostle, capital A thing, but we're all called to share in the nature of the apostolic church. And it makes sense there's more to being called the church apostolic than just that, but that is one aspect that we share in that apostolic mission. So when I kind of try to dial that in a little bit, I think of what in seminary we'd call the apostolate. So the apostolate is, a concerted effort to share the gospel. So for us in seminary, we're all assigned to some sort of ministry. It'd be another way of kind of looking at it. We'd go to the nursing home or the hospital or different things kind of throughout a year to kind of gain experience in how to minister in those venues and even share the gospel in those venues. Later as deacons, we were assigned to a parish that, we served at and all that's various capacities. But those were called apostolates. That was kind of like the concrete venue of where we served in an apostolic way, if you're tracking me. So the Catechism speaks of an apostolate as it says in paragraph 863, indeed we call an apostolate every activity of the mystical body that aims to spread the kingdom of Christ over all the earth. Okay? And the apostolate is every activity of the mystical body that seeks to spread the kingdom of God over all the earth. So we all tap into that. I mean, it can be in very serious, efforts of doing that, but it can be in that everydayness where I engage in the apostolate in my workplace, whatever. I witness to Christ, I witness to his kingdom, and I try to share that testimony and to those around me. So we're all called to that. I feel like the apostolate is a way to put flesh on all of our apostolic mission in life. So it's a fun word, and it does kind of involve some creativity. It's every activity aimed at spreading the kingdom of Christ on earth. So that's where it gets personal. We can kind of tap into what I love, what doors are open to me, and how can I bring the gospel into that venue. So we might think about that today, not just the apostles, and maybe not just the apostolic mission of the universal church, but also like my own personal apostolate. What is that? How can I use what the Lord has given me to help share and build up the kingdom of Christ on earth? Okay, that's what it means to be an apostle. We all take part of that, and one way of doing that is through the apostolate.